So my name's Ricky Av. I'm with Open Source Integrators. We are systems integrators for Odoo. My topic today is multinational warehouse inventory success. I made this more like a mini case study / success story about a very good client of ours. So to get things started, I think we've all read this in the news pretty much the entire year. There's a shortage of everything: toilet paper, notebooks, you name it. Some of the supply chain issues we've been faced with this year are just unheard of. We've got the Suez Canal incident with the Evergreen back in March, and one boat just held up shipments globally. Today we've got the shipping container stuck on the West Coast trying to dock just a month before the holiday shopping season in the United States. So these impacts are global. I'm hearing from our clients that the shipping costs are astronomically higher than they've ever been before. A container that used to cost a couple $1,000s to ship now costs $20,000 to ship. The lead times to get material from the manufacturer all the way to your warehouse can be significantly longer. So you're paying more, it's taking longer to get to you. There's also been a shortage of labor, a decline of the quality of the manufactured goods coming out of other countries. At the same time, everybody has to deal with this, even the consumer, serious inflation. So this results in a lot of interesting business challenges. How do you balance your demand versus distribution constraints? How do you plan for that? That also highlights if your business really is operating efficiently or not, because your margins now mean more than ever. If you have a lot of waste in your supply chain and your process, it's going to cost you more and it's going to eat into your profitability. There's also managing of customer expectations. Since we're living in an age now of pandemic, customers are buying more, and we really need to do our best to communicate with the customer that, hey, your order may be delayed. We apologize. Please bear with us, and we do our best to provide visibility of when they may get their products. So these are issues affecting everybody. But I want to talk today about a specific client of ours. I'm going to go through a partner profile of this company, Proslat. I'm going to talk a bit about some of the business challenges they face and how that relates to their adoption of Odoo. We'll also get into a little bit of some of these system extensions that were chosen and customized to help address those gaps. Finally, a quote from the customer and recommendations for other businesses facing similar challenges. So a little bit about Proslat. They are a garage organization, wholesaler, distributor, and retailer. This picture here on the left sums it up quite nicely. They got started selling these slat walls, and they eventually started carrying more and more products. So they sell these customized cabinets, hanging hooks, tool hooks, pretty much anything you could think of to organize your garage. Proslat is not a company that's been around forever. They were established in 2009. They are headquartered in Quebec, Canada. They sell both to the consumer and to other businesses. They sell into the USA and Canada. They procure largely out of China, a little bit out of Canada and US, but mostly in China. They do EDI ordering via through Costco, Home Depot, Amazon, Lowe's, Rona, some of the largest companies, big box retailers that we can think of. They sell their goods through. They have integrations with the major shipping carriers. We've also had to help build some customizations on top of that to make it more efficient. They ship a lot through UPS, FedEx, LTL Freight. A lot of their customers, for instance, the big box retailers, will have demands on Proslat saying, hey, you're going to use our shipping account, or you're going to use this store's shipping account and bill to the corporate shipping account. We found all sorts of variations that the customers demanded that they get items shipped to them. The tricky part about Proslat, as you can tell, this results in a company that runs multi-company, multi-warehouse, and multi-currency. So Proslat started on NetSuite. Around late 2018, we were contacted. Proslat was looking into getting into Odoo. They were looking at their license expiring in January of 2019. No option of renewal. They didn't want to renew. I was not involved in the original implementation of the project, but I was involved after that went live. There was a high cost to continue those customizations using NetSuite, and that was a contributing factor to choosing Odoo, as was the flexibility, of course. At the time in 2018, they did all of their order taking largely through EDI, getting EDI orders via those big box retailers. They also had a Shopify store for their B2C sales. They also did phone and email orders the traditional way. Like any business, they used varying spreadsheets of varying complexities for their reporting. When Proslat reached out to us, they wanted to get successfully migrated into Odoo by the end of the year. Of course, at this time, it was towards the latter end of the year. I believe it was around October. And at the end of it, we helped them successfully get into Odoo. The job took about 45 days, which is no small feat. In terms of the data that was actually migrated, Proslat made the decision that they wanted to bring in only their inventory and opening account balances only. So the open transactions spanning back years didn't have to deal with it. This was part of an overall strategy that I think worked out really well for Proslat, and we'll look into that here in the next few slides. So some of the business challenges that we determined when working with Proslat, originally when they reached out to us, it looked something like, how will we leverage Odoo to grow with the business? How can we maintain our growth in terms of sales, in terms of forecasting demand? And how can we improve our reporting both financially and internally for managing inventory? I'm happy to report we've achieved a lot of those goals, although some of these things are more longer term challenges. Now we have issues with how do we shorten our delivery lead times and combat high shipping costs. And further, I'm about to show you, they have a much higher volume of orders now than they did back in 2019 when we first implemented Odoo. So Proslat has been on a path to success since getting into Odoo. I pulled these numbers from their system. I didn't want to provide complete picture here, but what I did was I went into their sales module. I ran a pivot view. I looked at their volume, the count of sales orders, and the amount of sales orders. So this is very aggregate. Between 2019 and 2020, looking at the month of September only, you can see that a huge increase in sales volume and sales revenue from 2019 to 2020. This year, from 2020 and 2021 for the same month, you can they are still growing. Even from the previous year, we're still growing. So this is just crazy to see, guys. They have been really doing a great job in terms of using the system, operating, and figuring out where they want to go next. In terms of changes in their customer base, this is also very interesting to see. If you look at the percentage of sales to the USA, when they got started in Odoo, it was a fairly even split, almost 50-50. So they had 50% in Canada, 50% in the United States. In 2020, of course, that was the year the pandemic started. You can see a shift in a pretty significant way in terms of sales to the USA. They increased to 55% in 2020, and they went up another 1% in 2021. So that's just, it's really interesting to see, especially considering they've only been using the system for about 3 years now. For sales growth strategies, how did they meet those challenges that I brought up earlier? How did they grow their sales? How did they grow their volume? We started with business requirements, as we often do. We looked at challenges like, how are we going to reduce our time to market? How are we going to expand our sales and volume? One of the key contributors to that success was the implementation of EDI. We use the OCA EDI module for this. They do EDI 850, 856, and 810. When they started using Odoo, they also entered into an arrangement with a new partner for a value-added network. This is a company called True Commerce. They help to manage the relationship between those big box retailers and Proslat. So we grab the EDI files in a central location that True Commerce manages, and they help update the rules for, so that we can maintain a steady stream of orders into Odoo. So their EDI 850 orders populate our sales orders in Odoo, and off to the races from there. We fulfill the orders. Proslat also has adhered to a lean methodology of operations and management. It's ultimately a focus on delivering additional value to the customer. And we'll see in the quote here from our client, they sought to better understand the system first as it was, then determine where there was waste or where there was excess of additional button clicks, and how they could automate those processes to make it more efficient and deliver more value ultimately to the customer. So what we did was we found ways to automate the sales order, and then improve delivery order operations, inventory operations, so that there was more flexibility, more visibility into those inventory operations. Now today in 2021, with the significant increase in shipping costs and extended lead times, Proslat has made the decision to reinvest their profits into manufacturing in-house. I believe they broke ground earlier this year on a new manufacturing facility. They plan to have that up and running by mid-2022. So they're strengthening their national economy, and strengthening their position in the market by being able to manufacture as well. Looking at it from the operational perspective, these are somewhat different business requirements. How do we shorten our delivery times to our customers? How do we better automate in the warehouse? How do we have better flexibility in Odoo inventory operations? So some of the things that Proslat ended up doing was they changed their warehouse structure. In 2018, they had 2 warehouses in Canada and 1 in the United States. By 2020, they made moves to establish a new warehouse on the west coast of USA. They opened a Las Vegas warehouse in addition to their Groveport, Ohio warehouse. So along with the shift in the customer base and customer preference of ordering, you can see that they're making strides to be located closer to their customers so that they can deliver faster. So they've not only done this, they've also essentially stopped using one of their 2 Canada warehouses because it wasn't ultimately delivering value where they needed it. So now today they have 3 warehouses, 1 in Canada, their main warehouse in Chattagee, and that helps to supply to their Groveport and Las Vegas warehouses as needed. I mentioned earlier they built in automation to better facilitate order taking, getting their sales orders, taking sales order process more streamlined. They also built in automations into warehouse assignment at the sales order level. So based on where the customer shipping address is located, we determine by zip code or by setting on the contact records what warehouse would ultimately supply to that customer. And we've implemented this starting earlier this year, actually. In terms of flexibility in inventory operations, because they work with B2B and B2C customer bases, and because they have such long lead times in their supply chain, Proslat ultimately needed more flexibility in what they're doing in those inventory operations. Some of the things that we helped them do based on the requirements was ability to change the warehouse assignment after sales order confirmation. So we can change from a West Coast to East Coast warehouse as needed, given that the delivery order is not fully completed yet. We've also provided better visibility into where inventory is reserved, and we've implemented a module to help them unreserve from those delivery order operations if they need to reprioritize manually. In addition to this, we've improved the reporting for their inventory. Big request from the Proslat team was, how can I see how much I am short at each of my warehouses and locations? We've helped to implement better reporting into their products. You can open the form view of their products and you can see, okay, my Chattagee warehouse, at my Groveport warehouse, my Las Vegas warehouse, this is exactly where I'm short. This helps them to better visualize where they may need to get inventory transferred to or order more from their suppliers. Finally, the last one on this list has been big. We have been looking at implementing DDMRP for Proslat as an advanced demand planning. And DDMRP helps them to procure based on actual usage. We've implemented it into a test environment. It's gone fairly smoothly up to this point. Due to the holiday season in front of us, we plan to push that to their production system in early 2022. So that's really a big change for Proslat in having a sophisticated planning tool for procurement. Taking a step back, thinking about what were truly contributors to Proslat's success. Proslat has, the entire team has a good comprehension of what Odoo offers, what open source solutions offer. Due to the constraint of the initial implementation, as you recall, we had about 45 days to implement Odoo. there was not a lot of time to determine, okay, what are the customizations we're going to need to build and have out the door? How are we defining our minimum viable product? For Proslat, the MVP was largely a basic working Odoo version 12. So they started with a basic system. They learned the ins and outs of Odoo, adjusted to its shortcomings, and then defined where they needed to build automation. Going in that manner, it helped them to focus on the ROI of those customizations. And really it fueled to a better experience for everybody because they ended up getting to become more experts in using the system, which helps us to better understand their requirements to build any of the customizations they needed. In addition, I've seen it with the team. They're very agile when it comes to adapting to change. They have the ability to suit customer needs when they need it, as soon as they need it. If you Google Proslat and you look up their reviews, as a company, they have just stellar reputation for excellent customer service. They're also lean when it comes to operations. Believe it or not, Proslat is not a huge organization with hundreds of employees. They also focus on delivering ultimate value to their customers. And so I've got a little image here showing the lean principles. And again, they really prioritize on improving their internal processes before building any automations. As a wise man once told me, and often tells me and reminds me, the biggest strength of Odoo is that it is incredibly flexible. At the same time, the biggest weakness of Odoo is that it is incredibly flexible. So before deciding to pull the trigger on any customizations, make sure that the automation you want to build is built on a strong process first. And I believe the Proslat team really has taken that to heart. I reached out to the Proslat team for a quote. I got a really nice quote here from Michael Perceau. He is essentially their VP of operations, and in terms of the Odoo implementation, he was our project manager. What he told me was, the proper use of Odoo requires an understanding of the process behind what you're trying to do. Think of it like driving a car safely. You have to know the rules of the road, but you don't need to know how an internal combustion engine works. Proslat's team members who are able to learn how to drive have thrived and grown with the business. So their staff is now stronger, more versatile, more dynamic, and more empowered. Consequently, this makes Proslat a better company. Because of the strength of the team, I am afforded more time to work on company rather than micromanaging daily trivial tasks. Furthermore, trivialities have been automated through Odoo, which permits the team to focus more on more value-added projects that continue to evolve Proslat in the right direction and ultimately benefit our customers. I think this quote speaks volumes to how Proslat operates. You can see sprinkled in here, I've bolded some of these lines. It really speaks to how Proslat has built strong processes internally, adjusted the system as a result in order to deliver more value to the customer. I also asked Michael if he has any advice for other businesses. He pointed out that in 2021, 2022, the pandemic, these supply chain issues, all businesses are facing the same challenges. We have to accept this. In large part, many customers have adjusted their expectation for higher pricing and longer shipping times. But as a business, you should focus on what you can control. One example we gave of this from Proslat's perspective was they chose to control how well they work with their customers and grow their strengths. In 2020, In 2021, we helped them build a dealer portal, which helps them to better manage their relationships with their dealer customers. It's more of an interpersonal level of selling using the Odoo portal. They also provide phone support for both B2B and B2C customers. When you call Proslat, you don't get an automated call center. You get somebody located centrally in Canada or US explaining to you, hey, if you are short in your shipment, no problem, we'll get some sent out to you right away. Or if you have delays in your order, they can explain, what's going on and when you might expect your shipments. So they've really put the focus on delivering excellent customer service. With that being said, I wanted to save a few minutes of the presentation for questions for the audience.
Thank you, Ricky. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Thank you for that interesting talk.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, there's not too much going on in the channels right now, but I have a question if you don't mind.
Yeah.
So you spoke about 45 days for initial migration from NetSuite over to Odoo. Like having similar projects of ours in mind, one of the requirement or the challenges of such migration projects is always the institutional unlearning of processes that have been managed with the other suite. So how did you deal in this very short, I must admit, 45 days migration project? How did you deal with organizational unlearning of already known processes from NetSuite?
The answer is very simple. Think of it like your house is on fire.
Again, I didn't get that.
The answer is very simple. Think of it as if your house were on fire or if the boats were on fire.
Okay.
When your house is on fire, you don't have a lot of time to think about what you need to take when you leave the house. So you're probably going to grab some family photos and get out of your house before the whole thing comes down on you.
Why was the house burning then? Would be the second question. I mean, was it just the price of the licenses of NetSuite, or what was making the house burning?
So Frederick, I was not involved in the initial sales conversations with Proslat. I can tell you that Proslat very seriously reached out to NetSuite to ask for a contract extension so they could have more time in transitioning out of NetSuite into Odoo. They were told that it was a full renewal or no renewal at all. So they weren't able to extend their license even a few months just to transition. It was, you either pay us a lot of money or you lose the license.
Oh, crazy. Okay. Yeah, but that makes things happen then, even in the shortage of time, right? I mean, if people have to learn something new and they are desperately needing to learn something new, then they do it. But my experience is that if you give it too much time, or if the old tool has been in use for several years and now no immediate threat going on, then it is probably kind of hard to migrate all the people into the involved change management in such projects. Yeah,
there has to be a sense of immediacy. There has to be some sort of fire to their feet to get them out of the system into the new system. Because if you continue to say, okay, what customizations did you have in your old system? What requirements can we gather to implement into Odoo? That can go on forever. It took them years to build those customizations in their previous system. You probably don't have years to implement into Odoo. But nothing gets a project moving faster than having some sort of fire under your feet to get things done.
And then how do you qualify just an extension question, how do you qualify the fact that they got very focused on their processes? I think that they were already, I mean, they burned themselves probably by doing all the automations and using the agility that maybe NetSuite had in the first place to customize all kinds of processes, and that was part of the reason why it was so expensive, right? And then in the Odoo implementation project, you didn't have to do much to convince them to think first about the processes and how and their improvement instead of instead of implementing a process into the system. And the existing process, I mean.
Yep. Proslat has had very aggressive growth goals from the start. As I mentioned earlier, they're not an old company. They started in 2008. They don't have decades and decades of experience like some of these other businesses. So they've adapted to change rapidly. The employees who stuck to the old ways, so to speak, I've heard are no longer with the organization. So they've really taken to heart, this agile way of operating. They've made excellent choices since getting into Odoo, and as you can see, it's working. Their sales grow each and every year. Their volume grows each and every year. They're not resting on their haunches, waiting for the market to get better. They're being proactive. By breaking new ground and determining, they're going to decide to manufacture in-house. They've making that active decision to keep their technical support in-house. It really makes them a stronger company, and it helps them better understand what they need when they do need customizations.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it's about corporate governance all the way down, right? So thank you, Ricky. I'm sorry to cut you short because your colleague Maxime, former board colleague of mine, is already waiting in the chain for giving the next open source integrators talk. Happy to have you here, and thanks again, Ricky, for that.
This is very good. Yes, thank you, Frederick, for having me.